Sometimes it's quite clear. If somebody scolds you racial epithets and he's angry with you, that's clearly offensive. He is intending to be offensive. He knows it, you know it. And you're entitled to be angry with him. And he has no business doing it. And if it's going to be done in a very public way, that's a big problem and something will have to be done about it. Sometimes it's not so clear. You may be with friends, you may be joking with each other. We are each proud of our own communities, and we are not trying to become totally race blind in Singapore. So if you are a Chinese Singaporean, you do have a Chinese culture, heritage, language, history. If you are Indian, similarly, and from many different variants of that, depending on where in India you come from. And likewise, if you're Malay. And so when you are different, there's always a tendency, I am proud of myself is fine. I am not so proud of you is not so good. And I look down on you, that's worse. And it happens. I mean, even amongst the Chinese, maybe less now, but in an earlier generation, between the Chinese different dialect groups, there used to be a very strong sense of dialect pride and dialect rivalry and dialect conflict. And in the 19th century, about 150 years ago, there were riots in Singapore between Hokkiens and Teochews, for example. People died. So within the same race, you can have this. Between races, it can also happen. And so if we have to be proud of ourselves, but we must not, therefore, look down on others, or worse, denigrate or put down others. And I think if it's ill-intention, it's quite clear. If it is not ill-intention, should I take offense or not, those social norms change. For example, in Singapore, you have an ethnic festival. If it's Deepavali, quite often Chinese guests will turn up wearing saris or some Indian costume. And if it's Hari Raya, non-Malay guests will turn up wearing Malay baju sometimes. It's just, I'm friends with you, I'm dressing up, I'm doing you honor. But in America, for example, there is a strand of thought, you're not one of me, you're putting on my dress, you're not entitled to do that. That is cultural appropriation. Big word, you have to look it up. But basically, I'm proud of myself, you're not entitled to be proud of me on my behalf. So people get very angsty about these things. I think that makes life very tiring. And I don't think we should go in that direction. So it's a balance, and it's a balance which the younger people have to set. I have a certain view, but it's because I grew up in a certain age, and that's the way I am. Young people grow up in a different age, and you have to find your own norms and find your own way forward. And I hope you'll find one which is practical, which is robust, and which enables us to get on together and go out into the world. And when we go into another society where people aren't quite so nice and sensitive and used to dealing with you, you won't suddenly faint from shock. Because there's a whole wide world out there, and it's very different from what Singapore is in many places.